Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Philline. Today we're going to talk about some super deep shit. I'm going to talk about a few things that are a little bit deeper, out of space topics, life after death, and even things that are just going on in this quarter life crisis that I'm sure a lot of us are going through. So let's just get started. Hey y'all, and welcome back to another episode of Philline. It is so nice to have some fresh air. It's literally been so nice the past few days, and I just miss the warm weather. I'm so ready for it. This winter was so rough, and honestly, I just need the warm weather coming soon. So I don't know about you guys. Are you excited? I feel like spring is always just a really exciting feeling. I feel like it's just that extra push to be a little bit more motivated and just enjoy the outdoors a little bit more. And also, there's just a lot coming up that I'm just looking forward to and really excited to kind of go and experience and just do new things and finally just be outside again. Winter is so nice and everything. I love the cuddles. I love the, watching shows and wearing sweaters and really bumming out, but I definitely missed the whole going outside and just honestly, even though it's a lot more extra money, I'm definitely spending a lot more even recently, but I don't know, I just feel like it's so fun and I'm all ready for it, you guys. It's just going to be amazing. You know what I'm not excited for? I'm not excited for these allergies. Literally, I think I was just sitting there and had the most random itch, just from being outside for 2 seconds. And I'm like, hello, what is going on, honestly? And I'm just not looking. See, even right now, I'm itchy. I don't know what the hell's going on, but anyways, that's what I'm not looking forward to. Honestly, my allergies are worse in the springtime than in the fall, and I'm just not ready for it. Honestly, even Leo, my dog, he's starting to get a little bit of allergies, and I just know the signs. When we're walking outside, it gets kind of irritated, and I'm trying my best to keep up with it, but it's just a little bit hard. But yeah, I've definitely had a very interesting week, but also there's just a lot on my mind. I think on Netflix, there's a lot of life after death stuff. I don't know why. It just came up. And I wonder if it's just associated with Easter and kind of the religious history of what March and April kind of bring because of obviously, Jesus Christ dying on the cross, at least for my religion. Christianity, Catholics, you name it, we pretty much have this figure that dies on the cross to sacrifice for our sins and is constantly this symbolism that there is somebody of a higher being that has sacrificed his life for our sins, which is a very sinful one. We all have our own little sins or things that we do that kind of evil little things. And sometimes we can't control it, but I feel like there's this constant theme, especially around March and April and sort of into May, but usually the springtime, there's this kind of rebirth feeling. And it does bring up a lot of weird feelings for me. I mean, last year and the year before, thanks COVID, it made me kind of anxious because anything that had to do with life after death was something fearful for me. And we basically had a lot of situations where I just would literally have a panic attack because call it quarter life crisis, whatever you want. But those feelings just kind of kept coming up and freaking me out. That saying, this, live with faith, not fear. And I think for a long time I was living with faith. I was kind of appreciating the value of every day, of even waking up, how valuable that is. But I think I somehow got lost in the sauce and just the drama of COVID and this constant feeling that everything's always going wrong. I know I'm not the only one. Like, I'm sure everybody listening to this episode kind of somehow in some way feels the same way, especially somebody in our 20s who basically a good chunk of our life was not taken away necessarily, but much different and almost in a way that we couldn't control, right? Because of COVID and just everything around the world. The gas prices are going up. Like, I can't even fathom what the hell's going on. Like, what actually is going on? Because it's just a hot mess, like everywhere. I'm trying to wrap my head around like what's going wrong? What is happening to this country and to the world, honestly? It's so weird, but I think that, for a long while, I was feeling that kind of doom like every day. And I wonder if it was also because of the fact that I'm 25 now and, quarter life crisis. It gets kind of hard to think about a quarter of your life passing. You kind of reassess your whole life and you think about, what have I done? What have I accomplished? What is left for me? And it left me in this kind of weird out of body experience type, thinking late at night, especially late at night. But I would think a lot about just space, the world around us, what's worth our time, like how I am one person in this huge planet, in this huge solar system, and I'm just trying to understand it all. And I don't think I'm ever going to get, a concrete answer, which honestly was also scaring me and giving me anxiety. But I think it was cool to kind of talk about it a lot because I feel like everybody has their own value or view, I should say, about what they think happens, after life, what happens after death. And it's such a weird, interesting topic because obviously everybody's tried to come up with an answer, right? There's obviously scientists, there's so many people that invested their whole life into the study of the afterlife. And still to this day, we don't have an answer. And I think that my therapist definitely was spot on when he was telling me, like, we may not ever get an answer. And are you okay with that? Basically asking me. And for a while, I was like, no, I'm really not okay with that. But the thing is, I feel like I've been so hung up on the thought of what happens after life that I kind of forget that I'm alive, if that makes sense. I'm not focused on all of the amazing things that the beauty of this life is giving me right now. And I'm not taking advantage of it. I'm not, really being in the moment. And so I've been kind of trying to help myself stay in the moment by trying to remember that my feet are on the ground, like, just staying grounded. Like out of nowhere, just realized, oh, I'm alive, I'm here, and I'm really enjoying the moment. And I feel like it comes up a lot when I'm at home, bored, most of the time. But it does come out of nowhere. Like when I was in Key West, I was having such a great time. And I remember just sitting on this chair and staring off into space like, holy shit, there is a whole universe outside of where I'm standing right now. Like, even miles from here, the environment is so different. Like, there are actually rainforests full of all these different creatures that have their own life cycles, their own ecosystems. Like, there are deserts out there. And obviously, like, I feel like someone listening to this would be like, definitely, like, didn't you take geology class? Didn't you, like, learn anything in science growing up? Obviously, I have, but I think the most interesting part is really realizing that this world is a lot bigger than you in this moment. And I feel like it really puts me in perspective of a lot of things that are often bothering me, or sometimes just the little things that like bother me or disturb me or make me uncomfortable, angry, tired, cranky. Is it really worth my time spending on whatever it is that I'm wasting my thoughts on? And I think that comes a lot with the thoughts that are kind of mentally degrading on you, on yourself, on other people, and especially judgments that you have of other people that may not be true. There might be some hidden motive while you're feeling that way, whether it's jealousy, anger, sadness, most of the time it's due to jealousy because it's something that you don't have, or you're just not accomplished yet, or your experience was much different. So, when it comes to these negative thoughts and negative feelings and kind of just wasting my time kind of judging people on the inside, I try to change that. And it's done a lot for me in the past, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, because high school, especially, was such a hard time. There were always people around you talking shit about someone else. It was hard to be friends with people from different friend groups because, one friend from one friend group is talking about one of your other friends who you're close with in different ways. And I feel like there was just so much time wasted being judgmental of everyone else that it didn't create this kind of welcoming environment for, you're human. I'm a human. We have human issues. We have human emotions. And we're all alike in some type, shape, form, whatever. And it took me so long to realize that, you know, I feel like a good portion of my life was spent judging people, but also comparing to other people, right? This is kind of where my perfectionist tendencies came in. And it's not anyone's fault. I wouldn't go and point my finger on anybody, whether it was my parents, my siblings, my friends, everything. It's just how I took what criticisms were around me and how it kind of shaped me as a person. And I don't want to say I wasted my life being in that mindset, because every second that we're all alive is precious and beautiful. And, even that, honestly, I'm still trying to come to terms with. Like, I'm trying my best to take every situation as a way of growth, not just something that makes me sad. Even when I think about a negative experience a couple of years ago or 3 years ago, whatever, even my past relationships, all of the trauma and all of the emotional damage that I kind of have to face, still exists. It's still there. But for a long time, I was kind of pushing that shit aside. Like, I didn't want to think about it. I didn't want to deal with it. And I think that's a big reason why my anxiety was kind of really just exploding. Because obviously, like a jar, you can fill it up as much as you can, but if it gets filled to the brim, it's going to, overload at some point when you're constantly trying to just keep shoving information in there, or trying to tell yourself that it's all okay, but not really feeling how you should feel. And I think that that's a very big lesson in my later 20s that I'm kind of still embracing, still learning to love, because it's really hard for me sometimes to think about a negative experience or a friendship or a relationship that was really just emotionally triggering for me. Recently, I think I'm finally starting to get in touch with those emotions, those memories, and really trying to embrace it for what it was, and how if it didn't happen, I wouldn't get to this point. Like, do you guys constantly think, well, maybe not constantly, because I definitely don't constantly think about it, but on occasion, sometimes you think about a decision that you made in life and how different your life would be if you went the other way. I do think about that quite often. There's some big major events in probably everyone's life that, you know, not to get all comic-y and start talking about the Marvel universe, but time travel is such a big concept in the Marvel universe right now, and all the different branches, alternate dimensions. I truly believe in that. I know it's weird to say, like, thinking of it outside of the Marvel universe or TV or entertainment, it's it gives you a headache thinking about, because it's really complex and complicated. But the long story short of it is that one decision really alters how the rest of it goes. And it doesn't mean that one decision will give you a shitty life, or that certain decision that's in your head right now as you're listening to this is the wrong decision, right? I think that I like to think about it as just something interesting. If I went to a college halfway across the world, fun fact, I really wanted to go to Stanford in California, which is halfway across the world. Like right now, I'm in New Jersey. Oftentimes, I like to think about how different my life would be. Like if I went to even Columbia University or NYU, which isn't even that far from my home state, but I just think about that sometimes, how different my life would be. Like, I wouldn't have met my boyfriend right now. I wouldn't have been able to clear my mental issues and really declutter my brain right now. I mean, maybe I would have at some point, but there's just a few things that I know wouldn't be possible. Or, you know what? Maybe it's not that I don't know, because you never know with this universe. It brings you to the right people, like no matter what, it brings you to the right situations, the right people, the right things at the right time. So, maybe, I mean, who knows? In some random way, I would have met my boyfriend. I mean, it's a very complex issue, but I just think it's so interesting and very, like, out of this world, deep thoughts. I know it's very interesting, and just, I'm just so curious about life. Like, I'm so curious about, you know, what is more out there, like when we worry so much about work, when we worry so much about money, when we worry about, you know, am I going to reach my goals in time? What is the higher level, maybe expectations, not the word, but the higher level lesson that comes out of those little worries? Like, humanity. What is the point of humanity? Like, there's so many things that I have to ask, especially in a time like this right now when fighting again is happening, like Russia and Ukraine. It's just a lot. And like, I guess sometimes when it comes to those things and I really think about it, I just ask myself, like, why are we so hung up on fighting, on battling, especially war? Like, things like that in history constantly, it's a recurring theme about our history of the world. And yes, fighting may always happen, which sucks to hear, but isn't there something different we can do to be better about it? And I know it's such a complex issue. There's so many different angles that come to various things. Gun violence, even that small topic. Like recently in Miami, there were two shootings, and now they pretty much declared a state of emergency right now. If you have heard about that, that's currently happening. But even that, like, there's been so many negative experiences that sometimes I'm just like, what's it going to take for it to change? Like, what's it going to take for something different to happen, something to be implemented that we can decrease the amount of violence? It's just a lot of really deep questions that maybe I won't be able to answer right away. Maybe they won't show in a couple of years, but I feel like our progressive mood, or at least the progressive, I guess, progress, like there's no other word for me to say. I feel like sometimes we go backwards, and it's not a good feeling at all, when you're constantly reading about all these innocent people dying, or, shootings happening again and again and again. I just think it's so crazy. Like, we literally just came out of a pandemic and all this shit is happening. So it just still amazes me that people have the care for violence still after all of this. I almost feel bad because the severity of the pandemic, or, the real truth and facts, and just facts in general about what's going on between Russia and Ukraine, it gets so muddled by social media, news, propaganda. There's so many things that kind of muddle our view, or honestly the reality of situations. And it's hard sometimes. Like, it makes me really think about just life in general. Like, how did we get to this point? You know what I mean? It's like you'd think that our world right now that's so technologically advanced, that was literally a tongue twister. You'd think we'd be able to find some ways to at least minimize all of that stuff, but there's just still so much going on. And, there's some parts about the world that's progressive, there's some that aren't. So I just can't help but think, are we ever going to reach that point of not perfection? Because you guys know, you've read so many books about utopian societies, dystopian societies, I should say, because like nothing ever goes right. Nothing is ever perfect. So that's something I'm also still trying to kind of wrap my head around, that life is never going to really go the way that you plan, but it works out in such mysterious ways. Like, I don't know if there's anything more I can describe when it comes to that, but it's just so weird. I'm going to tell you guys a story that honestly freaks me out sometimes, but like in all the best ways. I was getting out of my really rough relationship, my last one. And it was honestly over a lot earlier than when I ended it finally, but I tried my best to see the best in it. When you are in a relationship, you want so bad for it to work. You can honestly lie to yourself for so long that it will get better one day, one day, one day, one day, until you're fed up. Like, it's not always going to get better. And I definitely had a bad characteristic of wanting everything to be so perfect, so good, and look so good, even on the outside, even on the inside. Like, it was hard because constantly, like, I feel like for a very long time, a lot of people around me were telling me, like, wow, we did not expect that. You guys seem so great. And that's just the honest truth about perfect. It just doesn't exist, you know? And it's sometimes hard to hear. Like, growing up, I was very much a perfectionist. Like, God forbid I get a 99.7. Like, my thought would be, well, why weren't you good enough for the point 0.3? You know what I mean? It's very much not an Asian cultural thing, I would say. It's not just Asian culture, but it definitely had its indirect influence on me as trying to see everything as perfect and wanting to accomplish everything and be the best person ever because, you know, sometimes in Filipino culture, it's how do I say this? It's very hard sometimes because you sometimes have to compare yourself to other people, and it may not be natural for you. Like, you don't do it on purpose, it just happens because that is just sometimes how it is with culture, where you're constantly wanting to one up someone else. And I've definitely been told when I was younger, before I even grasped the idea that nothing's ever going to be perfect. Even when I was younger, I was told that I did one up everyone, and it's a bad habit that I had before. I definitely see why, especially now that I'm kind of opening up in therapy and kind of seeing how past experiences have made you who you are. So, in that aspect, I feel like a lot of me was always judging, always comparative. It still shows up sometimes. Like, it's not like it goes away 100%. And that's just how it always is in real life. Like, you're not going to completely change who you are. Like, especially now in our 20s, we've been the same way for 20 something years. Like, you cannot really change that right away, like overnight. It's going to take some time. And the most important part about it is just constantly patting yourself in the back, I should say, that, you've come this far, you're willing to change, and the rest will follow. Me being a perfectionist it has its ups and downs. The past week, I've been waking up early, but not going to the gym. Like, it's just been so hard to keep up with that, especially because I'm just tired. And when I was in therapy, I literally was explaining to my therapist, I was like, I'm so tired of waking up and not going to the gym. Like, I don't understand what else I could do. You know, he's like, you know, have you ever looked at the opposite direction? Like, why are you sleeping in? And I'm like, because I'm tired. And he's like, okay, so do you like sleeping? I was like, I love sleeping. And that just made me realize, like, if I looked at it in that way, that sleep is also good for the soul. It's good for your body. Embrace it when you want. And there's so much more time during the day. Like, whether or not it's how you want it, you will make time for the things that are important to you, which is, in this case, the gym. And you'll make time to go at some point. So I was like, oh, wow, that's like a really interesting take on it, because I do love sleep. I do value sleep, especially the fact that sleep is so important for your fitness. Like, if you're not sleeping the right amount of time, you're literally just not really working out to your best because your energy isn't there. So I thought that was interesting, because I was like, oh, I never really thought of it that way. Like, I never really looked at things in that way, like kind of listening to my body in a sense, because my body doesn't like to get up in the morning. But when I wake up and I'm in the mood, I go. When I wake up and I'm not in the mood and I just want to sleep, like, that's totally okay. I think the whole "it's okay" phrase is still sitting a little bit rough with me in ways that I just don't like breaking out of my routine. It's not a bad thing to break out of your routine. So I constantly am telling myself that, like, you have to be okay with life not going the way you want it to. And the funny question that my therapist asked me, which I thought was really interesting, I never really looked at it this way. He had asked me, instead of trying to plan your life and hoping it ends up perfect, like, how come you don't plan for frustrations to happen? Plan for something to happen that might put you in a different mood than what you are now. And it's not like I'm saying to expect the worst out of everything, like wake up and expect to have a bad day, or, just expect nothingness. But you can have these goals, but also expect that there's going to be bumps in the road. So I thought that was really cool. Like, we don't normally tell ourselves it's going to be a rough path to get to where we are. We don't normally say, oh, we're going to get there one day. And then you don't say, it might get some rough patches on the way. There might be some speed bumps, some roadblocks. You might have to go around, forward, backward, up, down. We don't tell ourselves that. And I think that's just also a reason why we always get so disappointed when something doesn't go our way. At least with me, that's just how I've been growing up. And it wasn't easy having extremely strict Filipino parents. Like, sorry, mom and dad, but I love them so much now. They've changed so much over time, and just my relationship with them has blossomed and become something so beautiful as I've grown up. But oh boy, did I have it rough in high school or even middle school. It was rough. Um, a lot of times I just didn't feel like I was enough as a daughter, especially because I was smart. I won't lie about that. But I never felt like I was the smartest. And that's just how the mentality is. I was too much into music. I wasn't joining all of the smart people clubs, like speech and debate. I don't know. There was a bunch of clubs like after school that I could have been doing instead of music, instead of, spending time playing piano, being in the marching band, like singing acoustic nights. And that is a big reason why music was so important to me, because honestly, it was such an escape for me. It was an escape for me because I didn't have to be perfect playing music. That was all for myself. I could have messed up as much as I wanted and nobody would judge me. I mean, listen, marching band, that was a whole nother thing, but I actually enjoyed practicing. I enjoyed being better because it was kind of at my own pace. It was at my own judgment. And you're kind of held accountable for those things because it would show, for marching band, if you didn't practice, you'd definitely keep messing up. Like, I've bumped into people a few times. All of my marching band friends and marching band listeners can, think about all the little things they've done. But the funny thing about it is that when it comes to those things, like, that was my escape. I really didn't think too much. I didn't think twice about, you know, playing music when I wanted to. And I feel like I wish I could look at life in that way, like the way that I look at music, that it's a learning experience. And that's just how life is. That's how life is in general with everything. It's all a learning experience, no matter if you're just approaching your 20s, if you're almost 30, if you're even getting past that point. Like, every day is a learning lesson. And I don't think ever we can say that we finally cracked the code we call life. You know what I mean? It's just always going to be a lesson. And it's always going to be something that isn't constant, isn't perfect. And the earlier we accept that, or like, when we do accept that, every bump in the road and every small thing, every issue that comes up, you look at it differently. You're like, okay, this is not what I wanted, but at least it's something, at least I am feeling, I'm feeling shitty, but at least I'm feeling. Like, there's so many things that, even small things like feeling sad, feeling hungry, feeling cranky, like, those are moments where you can kind of catch yourself and react differently or approach differently. And especially me, like, when I'm cranky, when things aren't going the way that I want at that current moment, I take it out so bad. Like, I am cranky with people. I give people attitude, like, oof, like, don't touch me, don't hug me, do not even compliment me, because none of it's going to work. Like, I'm going to be very cranky half the time. But I'm trying to work on that, because, even doing that to the people around you without really describing or explaining, like, where those feelings are coming from, it is pretty destructive sometimes. And it does ruin maybe like a good moment between you and your partner, or you and your friends, or you and your dog. Even something as small as that, if you're cranky and you take it out on this poor, unconditionally loving dog, like, if Leo wants to play with me and I'm having a bad day, like, I play with him, but like, sometimes I'm like, okay, you're getting too jumpy, and like, I just get like cranky when he barks at everything in the back door. But even things like that, you kind of start to notice, and you can kind of take it as a learning experience and look at it as something different than what it was, rather than a bad experience, or rather than you taking out your stress. You start to kind of be more aware. And I think that I'm so proud of myself for doing that. Not all the time. Like, I still kind of lose it when I'm thinking about all the things that make me insecure, my body, my height. Like, I think about a lot of things. My fitness right now, why is my butt not humongous yet? Like, things like that. But you tend to catch yourself and kind of remind yourself, like, give yourself some love. I'm doing the best that I can. You're doing the best that you can. It's a constant reminder right there that helps me appreciate life for the imperfect thing that it is. And this can apply to realistically everything that's going on in our quarter life so far. You do know that the first quarter of your life is probably going to be the most, I wouldn't say most interesting. It's the most variable, because obviously you're starting off as a baby, growing up through elementary school, middle school, high school, college, and a little bit of adulthood. Like, that is the most growth and most variable environments you're going to experience, because obviously at some point you get comfortable. You stay at the same place, work at the same job for a very long time. So after a while, things kind of, I wouldn't say level out, and I also wouldn't say boring, don't get me wrong, but it just becomes more consistent, more constant, and you kind of have to go out of your way to actually make it different from what it was yesterday and 2 days before. And I think my younger adults, people in your early 20s and even in your mid 20s, like, you're starting to see that. I feel like in a way we can all agree that, life is starting to become a lot of the same things every day. And it's not our fault. It's just part of what comes with the Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 work schedule or whatever the hours are for your job. But it does start to level out. So I think that this journey that we're going on, where life is so crazy, so convoluted, so confusing, it is such a good experience that only is going to happen to us in this first quarter. And I feel like it's something that we should embrace rather than continue to get stressed out about, because almost in a similar matter, it's going to eventually figure itself out. So I think that while I'm feeling this insane crisis of I don't know what's next for my life, it's also such a beautiful thing because, I finally planned something awesome to do with my boyfriend, like a huge trip. We've never really done that because we dated for part of college and a part of, trying to build our lives and moving out. A lot of stuff happens in life that, delays you from your plans. And that's totally okay because looking back at it now, there's so much that I've accomplished even the past 3 or 4 years. And really look at that, look back at even just 2 years in your life, how far you've come. And it's only about to get better. So, this quarter life crisis that's going on with me, I'm trying to see it as something different. I feel like it's really brought up a lot of my anxiety of just me. Like, that's just how I am. I always feel like for the longest time, I've had a grasp of my future, what's coming up next. And that's just because in college, we have a set schedule. You have a set schedule. There's midterms, a third into the semester, 2/3 into the semester, and then you have a final at the end, and you're literally given a syllabus. It literally lists out your life, like what you're going to plan to study, what you're going to plan to learn, and what you're going to plan. Like, these are soft skills that elementary schools, middle schools, high schools don't teach us. And I don't think there's even a way to really teach you that life will become unexpected after a certain age. You know what I mean? Like, plans in life. Like, they never really tell you in school that you're going to graduate and not know what the fuck is going on. Like, maybe we should have tax, classes, lessons here and there, and lessons on how to own a house and just little lessons on how to be a little bit more self-sufficient. But it's not just going to be taught to you. It's hard because I can say all I want that I wish that they taught me in school about half of the shit that I do, but it's still something that you won't know until you learn and experience. It's kind of like the textbook says this, but in real life, especially like doctors or nurses, they can keep teaching you all the topics and the high level procedures and all these little things. But just like life, the most unexpected things can happen and it'll lead you to make a quick decision. Like, I don't know how you guys do, like, major props to all the healthcare professionals. That's so amazing. I have a lot of respect for you guys for really making decisions at the last minute because God forbid if I was there, I'd be like, I don't know what to do. Like, someone help, or should we vote? Or like, I don't know, freaking out, panics, and has an anxiety attack. But like, good for you guys, honestly. It's a tough time kind of trying to navigate that, even just with life alone, like all the small things that come up. And my perfectionism, how I see things as perfect, it's still there. Like, even for comparative things, I always have this idea in my head that couples or people on social media, they always look so freaking perfect. And I'm sure some people feel that way about mine too, because even my Instagram handle is that I love smiles. And it's not the case. Like, the truth of the matter is that I'm a more complex person than you think, even as this conversation goes. I'm talking about out of space shit, like deep thoughts, what goes on, how do we communicate with nature? Nature is us. We are nature. We are everything around us. It's a very complex topic, but there's a show, it's called Life After Death, and it's on Netflix. And honestly, like, it has touched me. Like, I literally watched it in 2 days, and I've gotten so emotional about it because this medium, Tyler, I don't know if you guys watched kind of his shows in MTV when it was on MTV. Like, I even watched it back then when he was a little bit younger, but he was a medium and he would literally bring up specific details about the deceased that nobody ever talks about. Like, it could be something as small as a memory or things they used to do as kids. Like, there's no way that somebody could fake that. And there are a lot of fake mediums out there and fake, people who communicate with spirits and the other world, I should call it. But I think that there definitely is this other, I wouldn't say dimension. There's just like another level of energy, spiritual energy that our souls go to after all this. And I don't know if that gives me anxiety or if it helps me bring peace to the fact that this life is crazy complicated, but I just think it's so interesting. And I definitely am a firm believer that souls are always connected. And I think that that gives me some type of peace with just everything that stresses me out sometimes, that no matter what, things will work out the way it's supposed to. And the people that belong in your life will stay, when they're supposed to. And some people will leave, and that is okay because life is not perfect, but it's going for you how it should be going, like, end of the day. And I think that thinking about life that way and thinking about our journey so far, it gives me such peace that it helps me kind of just stay in the present and really appreciate just even the small moments, coming home to my dog, to my boyfriend, like after a long days of work, and really just being in the moment, not using my phone, first of all, and just appreciating all the little memories, little conversations. It goes such a long way. And I definitely want to let you guys know that, if you're ever feeling stressed, to like pay attention to it and then remind yourself that, listen, you're grounded. Like, put your feet on the ground. Like, I'm on the ground. I'm here. I'm alive, doing the best that I can. And it's such a beautiful thing, when you really look at how far you've come in your journey and just life in general. It really is such a beautiful thing. And it motivates me to just take every day with whatever it has to be thrown at me and just embrace it and be ready for whatever it does. So, yeah, I think that's deep thoughts with Philline in a summary in a 45-minute episode. But I hope that you found this episode interesting, because I certainly do. And I find all these topics interesting. If you guys have anything else you want to talk about when it comes to being 25, quarter life shit, space shit, what are some creepy conspiracies, I would love to hear about it. Like, the world is such a weird thing. There are definitely some freak stories, I won't lie, like some weird shit that goes around, with this universe, but it's such a mysterious thing that even humans don't have a full grasp on it. Like, first of all, our universe, let alone the ocean, like, I'm pretty sure 80% of the ocean is, foreign territory for us. And that's kind of scary too, but also kind of a beautiful thing because what can we use with the ocean to kind of help us as a planet, the environment, lots of things. And just like life, like, even though this world is so advanced, it's kind of comforting to know that there's still things that we could improve on, we could find, we could discover, work on. And it kind of gives such a hope for our next generations, for our generation to continue to find all the little things that kind of make this world, quote unquote, a better place. So, yeah. Well, this is the end of today's episode. Thank you guys so much for listening. Any extra things you want to tell me, you can reach out on social media, feelinphilline.com, my Instagram at feelinphilline podcast, my Twitter at feelinphilline, and obviously just even in the comments of this podcast, if you're listening on Spotify, or honestly, anything. Give this podcast a rating if you liked it. Share it with your friends. I would love to hear more from you guys. And that is it. I will talk to you guys next week.